What's up? It's your boy Humble Dad back with another edition of Humble Dad Podcast. We're gonna have a great show tonight. You know why? Because I said so. Hey man, today is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration, and try to stay relevant around these camps. Everybody has their particular perspective on who he is, who he was, and I wanted to talk to the panel about how do they teach their child or their children about Martin Luther King, as some people say in certain cultures. And so, but before we start all the conversing, we're gonna start to introduce the panel, and we're gonna ask them the question of what's your favorite fruit? What is your favorite fruit? We're gonna start with Miss Tax Season, Miss Shay. What's going on, Miss Tax Season?
Nothing much. Nothing much. It's busy, but busy is good. So
That's
no.
what's up. That's what's up. You got the question?
I got the question. What's my favorite fruit? I will say grapes. The big fat ones, the seedless grapes. I like them.
It's two different. It's like some colors. Is there a particular color?
The green ones. The
Oh, okay.
green fat
Green.
jumbo seedless grapes.
Okay, you get those from Sprouts?
Yes, I like them from Sprouts.
Okay, that's a bet. All right.
Yeah.
Welcome to the stage. None other than Mr. I'm Swole today. Prototype in the building.
What's up? What's up?
Chilling, man. What's good with you?
Man, living the dream.
That's what's up. What's
My
you got?
favorite fruit.
Yeah.
Uh it's seasonal for me. So when it's summertime, I want that good watermelon. You know, if it's fall, I want me some apples, so I'll just go with whatever seasonal. So and August, man, them cotton candy grapes come out, man. Fire.
Cotton candy. I don't know about no cotton candy
Them
grape.
them cotton candy grapes are fire. Unreal.
Okay. Got to put that on the list. I haven't heard of that one, bro.
Yep.
Me neither.
That's a bet. All right. Thanks for being here again. Hey, welcome to the stage, Mr. LL Cool J in the building.
What's
King
happening?
Rio.
What's
What's
happening,
going
man?
on?
I had to say red grapes. I don't know for whatever reason when I come into the grocery store, they're there. You know what I mean? They're easy to spot. You know what I mean? I like to kind of get in there and get on out. Um, all you gotta do is wash them off. It's a good snack when you're trying to have a healthy snack. For the most part, you can feel healthy about yourself. When you're having them. So yeah, for the most part, that's probably my go-to.
That's what's up, man. Hey, and then I got to welcome to the stage my homie and my friend, my buddy, yes, sir, Mr.
Yo,
Dwayne. What's going
yo,
on,
yo,
homie?
yo. Man, living it, living it, living it. All right, so mine is strawberries, and the reason for that is because whenever I was a young chap in Jamaica, Kellogg's got me, right? They had that strawberry on the box with the cornflakes, and I used my little chump change to go into the grocery store and get them, only to find they weren't in there. So I didn't get them until I came to America after I was 8 years old. So it took me a good couple years to get to them jokers. But yeah, they were worth it.
So that sparked the thought, Dwayne. Went to Jamaica for the first time last spring and went into Kingston, and there was these Jamaican apples.
Oh, they
Um,
come different.
man,
Yeah.
completely different than the apples we have here. And
Yep.
so we were actually to start thinking about it's not my go-to fruit, but after having it, that's one of my favorite fruits easily.
Is it? I think it was it red,
Yeah, yeah,
red pear.
I believe so. I
Okay.
believe so. It was my
Yeah.
first time ever seeing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
New to me completely. Never heard of a breadfruit either. They had breadfruit. They had
Yeah,
everything.
man. Long time.
They had everything. So yeah, that was definitely an experience. When I went, I took the opportunity to kind of really experience it off the resort, and
Nice.
that was definitely one of the highlights.
That's what's up.
Yeah, that is
Listen,
what's up,
Jamaica is my home away from home.
man. How many times you been there, Shay? You always posting
I
about you
go
go. You
like
go like
at
3 or 4
least
times a week.
no, like 3 times a year. Maybe 2 or 3 times. I always go at least 2 times a year, but sometimes I go 3 times a year. That's my that's my place.
When's the best time to go to Jamaica? I haven't gone yet.
Year
It
round.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, year round. It just but in August it's like when it's more rainy though. So
and
you probably
and
want to
also
stay
be
away.
careful with the flights because the school and carnival and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would
But
probably want to go
I
like,
normally go and I stay an extended amount of time. So I'll stay like a month here,
oh
six
wow.
weeks. Yeah. So when I go, that's my retirement place. So
I can ready to say
I,
you need a
You
property
practice,
there if you don't already have one.
right?
yeah, that's in the works right now.
You don't
Yeah.
already have. That's crazy because you've been
No,
doing that.
I started the process. I was building during COVID, but then everything happened during COVID, and everything changed. Like the criteria changed. They wasn't allowing people to come in, so that messed up the whole process. And now it's like double what I was paying for it at first, which is ridiculous. But yeah,
That's what's up.
COVID just changed that up.
All right. So okay, cool. Let's get into these questions. All right. I'm gonna start off with just a word. Let me just start off with a word. It's typically a triggering word in some aspects or another. But let's talk about it.
Baby mama. I'm
Submissive.
kidding. I'm kidding.
Submissive. All right. And you can use whatever context you want. Right. I'm leading into something, obviously. All right. So we gonna listen. Since you shake your head no, Dwayne, we gonna go with you, bruh.
Hey, all I was thinking about was that mystical song. Danger. Oh man, yeah, that's a tough one. So sometimes like with pick your battles, like there's that pick your battles. So sometimes you just gotta humbly bow out. But I think I know where you may be going with this. From a biblical perspective, it says, as for to submit to your husband, wives submit to your husband, and it's a difficult thing. Like, and especially if you are a self-motivated individual, it's difficult for you to submit because you desire to go hard. And I'll even say that from my perspective too. It's difficult for me to submit, especially whenever I feel that I am right. It's difficult for me to submit, or better yet, Daniel asked me the other day what that yield sign means, right? And it's like, in the process of explaining to him, it's not a stop, it's not a go, but it's like give way or give right away to the oncoming. So you yield. If there's nobody there, then you can go. But if there's somebody there, you yield and you allow them to pass and go by. So that's what I would look at submission as.
That's good. All right. All right. So who you got going next?
Come on with it, Shay.
All right, I was cut off for a second. The Cowboys scored, and then my internet went out, so I don't know. But
Yeah,
I'm
the hell
back.
for
The Cowboys are winning. Like I'm bugging,
It's
bro.
24-0 right now. So, but submissive, uh, I think of like resting or like laying in, um, just being comfortable and confident in that. I think a lot of times submissive has a negative connotation, but I think it is something that is positive and that you should be confident in. All right, King Rio, what you got? You got something else? What you going to say, HD?
You said what's the last part of your statement? You said that people should rest in it.
Yeah, it's like a resting place. Um,
Huh. Explain. Submissiveness is a resting place.
yeah, and I say that from because when I think of submissive, I think of like gentle spirit or um just being able to confidently immerse yourself into the situation, to the person, to the environment or whatever. So I when I see that word, I think it's like a resting submersion or immersion versus submersion into it.
Okay, that's a bet. Let's go, King.
Just for clarity, are we talking about men or women being submissive? Are we talking about ourselves?
Just open. You can go however you want to go with it.
Um, I think for me personally, I think it's important to be submissive in the way of in the context of like obedience to God for men. I think that's very important. I think that we have to be connected in a spiritual way in order to lead and allow God to kind of give us direction so that those who are being submissive to us, you know what I mean, aren't being led astray, right? We have to have a source. We have to have a source. So I get lost oftentimes when people tell me that their direction is coming from them alone. You know what I mean? I wouldn't dare give myself that much credit, right? So yeah. Now, as far as women are concerned, if you choose to be a wife, right, I imagine that you are comfortable resting in submission or a submissive nature, so to speak, if you trust in the leader of your household. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, that's my perspective on it so far.
That's a bet. Prototype is on you.
Man, everybody's so elaborate with it. Submissive is I mean, that's pretty much simple, man. Is to go with the plan, right? So like a team is submissive to the coach. You know what I'm saying? Whatever his game plan is, that's what it is, and that's what we execute on. So submissive is to go with the plan.
I appreciate that. Okay, so for me, all of those are well and well said. The one thing that came to mind was being submissive to authority, right? If you're saying go with the game plan, right? If you say resting with, in your I guess humility would be a word that could be used. Um, but being able to submit to authority says that you're trusting that authority, right? Which is what King alluded to. Um, and so I want to kind of segue into kind of talking about when is it okay not to be submissive? When is it okay to not be submissive?
Uh, I mean, I'll jump into it. Uh, whenever it embarks on your moral value, whatever you have set as in this is morally correct, I'm not going to be submissive through that. You know what I mean? So let's say um, I cannot work for a company that goes against my values. You know what I mean? There was one time I was conflicted with building an app. I'm a software developer. I was approached with building an app that I don't necessarily agree with. You know what I mean? So because I don't agree with the product, I could not build it. You know what I'm saying? So uh, at that point, I could no longer be submissive to the financial aspect of whatever is going on at the time. You know what I'm saying? To the job or whatever. So whenever it crosses your line, your threshold of what's morally correct in you, that's when you cannot no longer be submissive.
Man, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Um, man, couldn't agree more. And honestly, Doc, when you mention authority, the first thing that come to mind is law enforcement, right? I mean, ultimately, I think that's a battle sometimes, right? Because you don't necessarily know who's behind that badge, right? And I get conflicted when we're submissive to a point that we are in danger by being submissive, then we are already in danger by not being submissive. That's a struggle. That's a real struggle. I've battled with that. Um, it's knowing that somebody has your best interest at heart, I think is what allows you to be submissive with confidence. It gets scary when you feel as though they want to do you harm or they don't care about your well-being. Right? And so, man, I don't want to jump too many chapters ahead, so I'm gonna stop there because I know the meat of the show today, and I don't want to get there yet. But now that just I see the connection. Excellent. Yeah.
No, I agree, and I want to know, is that inherent? Is it taught? Because I'm thinking about my son, for instance, right? And I'm just like, do you just not respect authority? That's what I think about him sometimes. But his father is kind of like that in a sense, but then his grandfather was a revolutionary. So it's like, it's just this rebellious type of, I'm gonna do my own thing. And so I go back and forth with that, right? In terms of, yes, I want, and we are raising him to respect authority, but it goes back to what King Rio said. Like, if you don't know if that person has your best interest, then it is hard to do. And then I'm thinking of it as, okay, well then why does he challenge me so much? And maybe that's just me being a woman, and him being a male, which is why he going to live with his daddy starting in the summer. But so it just has me thinking that, now that he's growing and that testosterone is growing as well, it's like the boy, he don't want to submit. He want to do his own little thing. So, it's just trying to find that balance. And his dad can say, you got to do this, you have to do this, but at the end of the day, he choosing what he want to do or not. So
It's crazy that you mentioned that, Shay, because one of the things that comes to mind, even connecting back to what you said, Prototype, is I think that once you start to cross over from boyhood to manhood, you start to be less concerned about the consequence of standing on your own beliefs. Right? It's like in order to stand firm on our principle and what we believe in, oftentimes we are willing to suffer the consequence. By that point, we are conditioned to deal with whatever the consequence is. So fear of that consequence isn't as great as if you were a boy.
Once once I realized that there was no beating my mom can give me that can hurt me, it was over. Like my 5-year-old doesn't listen to his mom. You know what I mean? If I step, like, I don't have the problem she has, but he'll be like, he'll tell her no. He'll get at her like whatever, and it's not so. I'm like, I gotta come in like, rah, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, dang, all right. So it's definitely because you're his mom, and
yeah,
that's the best move to send him with his dad.
yeah, and that's where we're at, right? And I'm like, listen, once he go for the summer in May, Buddy not coming back until winter break, and we're switching roles, right? And outside looking in, people will say, oh, that's a lack of respect, but I'm like, no, I really just think he is growing into this boy, younger boy
Don't
kind
take it
of thing.
personal.
Right. And I'm trying not to, but which is why I said I had to pull the trigger and say, listen, we were thinking about eighth grade, but the time is now. Like, I'm noticing that the time is now, and that's just it. It's now. And I don't know how to explain it, but I think if people see the interaction, they would be like, okay, he challenging you so much, or why he doesn't have the fear in you or whatever. Like when we were coming up, I think some moms would have that. And I'm just like, figure this
Moms
thing
probably had it temporarily. If they
out.
had
Okay.
boys, they had it temporarily. That's why moms was whooping them so much. Like they're trying to regain some type of control over a man, basically a young man, especially when you get to be 15, 16, 17, whoopings don't hurt no more. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
they may result to other things as in regard. But I'm curious to ask Shay, is this something that you would recommend to other women? I mean, it's not part of the conversation, but just since we're here, to have if they're a single mom, to send their sons with their dads if they're if the dad is in the picture, obviously.
Yeah, I think it is something that I would recommend. And the timing of it, of course, I thought just reading parenting books, right? You like, okay, we're doing this time, eighth grade, this is the plan. But you really have to be intentional and paying attention with your kid and seeing what's happening and how that development is happening. So if a woman does have that opportunity, there will come a point in time when the son has to go with his father, period. Now, I don't know, I can't say when that should happen for each person, but there will come a point in time where it just has to happen. And it can't be and my I had to have this conversation with Vinny. He said, "What, you don't want to be a mommy anymore?" I'm like, "Boy, I'm always be a mommy. It has nothing to do with me not wanting to be a mommy, but some things that I'm realizing I don't have a hold anymore, right? And you're truly developing into this young man where you trying to tell me what to do, and that's not going to happen because I'm the adult, and so I'm not going to play tug of war with you and get all frustrated. I can only lay the groundwork, lay the rules, and it's up to you to, respect that and abide by it. But I don't want to be challenged. So I know now that I'm being challenged so much, it's like, oh,
There comes a
this is
point.
that testosterone. So now let me go ahead and transition you into allowing your daddy to show you how to help you mold that testosterone and what that should look like. Because I have no clue. I'm a woman. I have no clue. I don't know what's going on in that little body and that brain and the wee wee. I don't have a clue. Okay, so I would rather his daddy just really take that on full force. And fortunately, we have that relationship where he's gonna do that.
That's dope. Dwayne, what's your take? When is it okay to not be submissive?
Well, before I get to that, I'll say Shay. It was halfway through my seventh grade year, and then my ninth grade year and 10th grade year that I moved to live with my dad in California. So yes, there was a time where hey, it was either ship up or ship out. That my mom said either ship up or ship out. So I do believe there is a time if there is that relationship to then be able to I'll call it the 28 sweep or 27 sweep where you just get the ball and just toss it and then allow the running back to run to the outside, whichever side, which right or left, either way. But you getting the ball and you're running on somewhere else. So I do believe that that's appropriate. But then to the question at hand, I do think that you have to know your authority and you have to know where your grounding is as well. So it's interesting because we're going through this study for our fifth grade boys at church, and we're going through Daniel. And Daniel is one of my favorite books in the Bible, and I named my son uh, after Daniel from the Bible because he stood firm. He was in a new environment, and he desired not to defile himself with the king's meat. So he defied the king's authority. He defied, hey, you have to do this, you have to eat this, and even his friends that he was with, they also defied authority and they suffered the consequences for it. But once you are within sight of God's grace, because there is the authority of man, and then there's the authority of God. So King Rio, you were addressing that earlier, like whenever you were making mention as to the police officers, hey, they could either be of their own mind, or they could be of the mind of God. It just depends on whose authority they're under, in which they will then their fruits will then be produced. So in that regard, I look at it from the standpoint of once you are abiding by God's authority, me personally, once I'm abiding by God's authority, like I can define man's authority because I know I am then protected by God. ultimately. So that's whenever I know once I know that, hey, I'm abiding in what God says, then guess what? Come what may. Like that's how I look at it. Come what may. If you want to throw me into a furnace, come with it. If you want to throw me into the lions, then come with it. Because I know that you're the power in which you think that you don't have. And ultimately the power that governs it all is which I'll try to abide by.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting. Okay. So if my leader is God, what you're saying, right? That's what it is for me. And so if there is a earthly leader that goes beyond what it is that I would deem going against my God's standards, then that's when it's okay to be not to be submissive. Is that what you're saying?
God's authority supersedes man's authority.
Got it. Okay, got it. Okay. So then as we transition to like, the civil rights happened, there was a scenario of or not even scenario where there was a you had Jim Crow laws were in effect and they were saying that, black people could not we'll give an example, couldn't drink from a certain water fountain, right? So the authority in place said that black people couldn't do X, Y, and Z, right? So then here comes individuals that say, you know what, I don't think that is right. That supersedes what my God tells me is okay. Okay, now watch this though. Since y'all there were some that say that they believe in God that did not. Well, they did submit to that authority. So, what would be your conversation with your child when he or she comes to you and presents that scenario to you? If you say that if it goes against God's will, then it's okay not to be submissive. Where there were individuals that claim to be followers of Christ that did not, they actually did submit to the Jim Crow laws. Anybody can go.
What about the Jim Crow laws were outside of biblical standard? I guess is the question, right? So
Yeah.
I mean there's what we find what we deem decent and not decent, right? But I can see how it can go so long without being challenged because it doesn't necessarily go against the word of God. You know what I'm saying? In that direct light.
Equality.
I'll say this. A gentleman at work, we'd have these conversations, and he doesn't believe in God, but then he'll use Romans 13 as for so yeah, okay, all right, so you have to obey your authority, right? And as I was looking on that and chewing on that, that's whenever the situation with Daniel came up, because it's like, wait a minute, it's not, it's even to that specific thing. As for obeying authority, there's God's law, and He'll say it, and He says what He says, He means, and you should do. But then there's men's law, and there's like the point he was trying to get across was there's only God's law, and I'm like, no, if there was only God's law, there wouldn't be any free will. But because there is free will, that introduces man's ability to make their own decision. So once they make their own decision, the consequences then will come with that decision in which they make. So, for example, in the Garden of Eden, he said, hey, don't eat of that tree. Everything else you can have, but that tree over there, that's mine. Don't eat of it. But guess what? Because of free will, Adam and Eve had, or both of them had the opportunity to go and consume it, and they did. That's man's law. God already laid out what God's law was, in so much that Eve was able to repeat it back to the devil. Hey, this is what he said. But then they still had the ability to then choose within that choice option. So free will, you do have that choice is then extended to you. So it's then up to you whether or not you'd like to abide or you'd like to go and do your own thing.
So, but Prototype is saying that there was nothing about the Jim Crow laws that was unbiblical. That's what you're saying, right? Prototype. Okay. But
I know you were going to say equality, right? And I
to a
understand
degree,
that,
yeah.
but
I was
it's
going to talk about the Imago Day, right? Image bearers of Christ, right? Which is from the in the Bible it says that we're all created in His image, right? So if you're treating one individual different than you're treating others, then that would not be biblical.
I mean to a degree, but it's not a direct reflection of it's not a direct like as it says, thou shalt not kill, right? And I'm just using it as an example, right? So if we were being killed, then that's something to purely fight back against. I think when it came to from that, Jim Crow laws wasn't that far from, I mean, slavery and all that, like, you know what I mean. So it's when we come to this point, we've been fighting for equality, and at Jim Crow laws at that point, you're like, man, we better than what they used to have it. You understand what I'm saying? So it's not like a necessary thing to really like this is against the Bible. Now I can understand how all that could have happened based off of this is not fair on how we're being treated. You know what I mean? And that could spark something.
So to that point, that's where I love these type of conversations, because it goes back to, again, like I was saying earlier, as for knowing your authority. So, or better yet, even knowing your rights. So slaves or blacks were kept uneducated. So you were not able to read the Bible. The Bible, I think King James was 1660 something, and then also the Constitution, 1776. So from those point on, we were there was a desire to keep us in the dark from knowing what our rights was, whether we were spiritually free or physically free. So from that standpoint, for me, knowing your rights, that it is all about equality, or better yet, fairness. Do unto others as you like done unto you. So even whenever it comes down to the whole Jim Crow aspect, fairness is something that's ingrained in us, and it's something that we have to then ignore our conscience in order to then go along to get along. I think that's why we've made such significant progress, because whenever we go through generations and generations, we'll see these changes in our mindset, where a younger generation, they don't care about politics, like they care about fun. So whenever you have the white kids and the black kids and the older ones, they're the ones who were worrying about politics and all these Jim Crows and all this. But whenever the black kids and the white kids, doesn't matter what color you get to and you're having fun, that stuff doesn't matter. So as you grow older, then your memory of having these interactions, human interactions with other humans, that's where the skin color part does not matter. And I think that's why we were able to gain these advances, because those things don't really matter as much to the young as they do to the old, because there's these things that are ingrained in us. So that's the perspective I take looking at these things from the Jim Crow's standpoint. So as for laws are made by man. But then as for the Constitution doesn't say anything about sex. Doesn't say anything about your color. It doesn't say anything about that. So in that, it's up to man. And the part of that that's interesting to me is the man who holds authority, in which then gets the say. It's the man that yells the loudest, screams the loudest, pounds the table the loudest, in which they were able to get their rights or their ideas passed. So to keep us uneducated, to keep us out of the field of public influence, they keep us uneducated so that we won't participate in this um, social experiment called America.
Anyone have thoughts well on the situation? As for, do y'all agree with prototype as it relates to that Jim Crow laws was acceptable or okay, and it did not necessarily go against the Bible necessarily?
I mean, I feel like you could pick and choose. There's plenty of places where you can pick in the word to be like just to say if this was right or wrong. I'm just saying like in an overall perspective, right? They're not preaching in the church. They're not giving with the mess because a lot of people who are Christians don't even read the Bible or they don't chew on it, right? So in that case, right, in that sense, you can see it and be like, okay, I'm supposed to be treated fair this way, and that's the reason why it was a Nat Turner. That's basically his story, right? Once he started to understand how the word was really written, then that's what started his rebellion. But I don't like I said, I don't think what I mean is blatant. I don't think there's anything blatant in it to alert people. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of in a sly way on how we're messing. It's not fair, but it's not blatant against the word. I feel.
And that's where I would then say the Bible and the Constitution to me are they the Bible complements the Constitution because it says unalienable God given rights, and it's men who believe to revoke the rights of other men. And it says even with that, it says we are all created equal with God given unalienable rights. The Bible also says that we're made in the image of God. So with that, as you were saying, as HD with the MLK Day, if we're all made in the image of God, then that's a level of equality. Now our abilities are different, but then the Constitution does state that all men are created equal. So that was one of those things that they had to reconcile with the Constitution, that how can it be that all men are created equal with God-given unalienable rights, but yet we're able to then subjugate a certain group of people just because we feel like it, just because of their skin color? Like to have that mindset is not only that. I believe it's the Declaration of Independence. In order to establish a more perfect union, the Bible, Jesus says, "Be ye perfect." So in it, it's a pursuit. So not only are we pursuing perfection as individuals, we're also pursuing perfection as a nation. That's as from my perspective, and which I get from those two documents. Because in that, pursuing perfection is meaning you are getting rid of contradictions. And if you have contradictions within yourself as an individual, then you're going to have to sort that out. And that's the importance of self-awareness. So as a nation, we also then just like Jacob, he was an individual, but then God changed his name and changed his name to Israel, and then made a nation out of that individual. Same for us. They'll as for individual, then becoming into a nation. As for America in itself, we are going through those steps in order to being more perfect. So the what we went through decades ago, centuries ago, we have made remarkable improvements on those, but yet we have the ability to go back if we don't know where we're coming from. So with that, I do believe we have made remarkable steps and a tremendous improvement in our human condition, in realizing and acknowledging that we are pursuing perfection. And in that pursuit, we have to get rid of contradictions. And once we do that, then guess what? The coast will be clear. We can do what we do.
One of the things that comes to mind is the fact that religious texts have to be interpreted by religious leaders in order to be able to teach it to their people, right? So at one point in time, and I think at this particular period of time that we're talking about, I think that there were Christian ministers who were almost teaching that from the Bible, so to speak, that whites, by their interpretation, were superior, right? And that we were cursed to be servants, making us a lesser people, and also saying that God supports it, right? And so the Bible has been used against us ever since slavery times in order to kind of perpetuate that, so to speak. So we have to be careful who we allow to minister to us, right? Because we've seen this happen.
Yeah, but I will also then say that the Constitution as well is a document that is opens itself for interpretation, and the interpretation is done by man. So whenever you said as for religious texts, I then also then correspond that the Bible to the Constitution as well, because the Constitution is left open for interpretation. And the reason why I say it's open for interpretation is because it never says anything again about sex or your ethnicity or color. It doesn't say anything about that those. So it's open for interpretation by men. And I think what segued into the Jim Crow laws was then the fact of the fact of the Civil War. So the Civil War happened, then you had the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment. You had the Reconstruction era, in which then led to the South, which was predominantly um, the Confederacy, which fought against the Union. The Union is what we know as the United States. That's who won the Civil War. So men died on both sides fighting for what they believed in. The Confederacy, they had their own constitution which allowed for slavery, where the Constitution did not. Because again, that's that contradiction. How can you then hold a group of people as slaves whenever you say that all men are created equal with God-given unalienable rights? So it's left up to that interpretation. So the powerful people that were in the South had the ability to then make laws in which it says, if we can't keep you as slaves by us and our authority, then we'll make you slaves by law. You can't have this amenity. You can't have that amenity. You can't sit on this place in a bus. You can't drink from this water fountain. So we can make you slave. But then the 13th Amendment, if you break our laws, then you will be subjugated to slavery, a form of slavery. So I do believe that same thing goes back to authority. So in the South, with the Confederacy, after they lost, they never dissipated. They just became the ones making the rules, and then they were able to make rules formulating laws such as Jim Crow, which then put us under a different form of authority. You break their laws. It's kind of like, I'll put it like this. You're trying to play in the NBA or the NFL, and the referee is against you. What are the chances that you will win the game?
And that's the thing. So even when you mention the Constitution, right, and one of the things that comes to mind is separate but equal, right? And it's just like, how could that ever be? We could be separate, but we'll never be equal if there's a disproportionate amount of resources, right? We're always going to end up with the short end of the stick. You know what I mean? And so even when we talk about that now, and I think sometimes there are people of color that say, I wish we just had our own everything. You know what I mean? And I get it, right? But nevertheless, we don't have the same amount of resources. So therefore, will we be able to have, for example, same quality of education? You know what I mean? For our kids, I don't think that that's possible, really, right? In the masses, right? And I think that was part of the issues in the past, right? Whereas when you had black schools and you had white schools, well, we didn't have the same resources. Therefore, we couldn't have the same level of education. And it still goes on right now as far as public school is concerned in the hood, depending upon where you live, so to speak, and what tax bracket the people are. You know what I mean? It's still going on today. So, I mean, what truly is the solution? I don't know.
I want to speak to kind of piggyback off of what you just said, King Rio, and how Dwayne, you keep mentioning, the Bible and the Constitution, right? And I think you're lacking the understanding the level of ignorance we've had as the Black community, right? And how we depended on the teachings of our pastors or wherever. Like it wasn't like everybody knew the Constitution to even compare to what the Word of God was saying. You know what I mean? Like there's a high level of ignorance, and I think you kind of miss it You know what I'm saying? Because you're not, you're not generally from here. And I know Jamaicans have this certain level of, family tradition and blah 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 blah. You know what I mean? Like West Indians, y'all still have that certain thing intact
Irie, man, Irie.
that a lot of Americans don't have. So which the things you had to come in understanding about the Constitution and how it compares with the Bible and fighting for this and this, we were asleep for a lot of it. You know what I mean? And we only had a couple leaders to kind of like, hey, this isn't right. And if we wasn't in contact or knew somebody in that lane, you know what I'm saying? We're just going with what we could do. You know what I
Okay.
mean? So there's a level of ignorance that you're just not accounting for that we
So
had.
so I love that. Y'all probably you most likely y'all watch Django, right? And there's that scene in Django where the master he had that scripture verse, right, pinned to his chest, and he was going out there to whoop that black lady because she dropped some eggs or something like that. And I look at that, right? And I'm like, how does he have that scripture pinned to his chest and he's going to do something so heinous to her? And whenever I think about ignorance, ignorance is bliss, right? But then I also then think about it as an informational warfare. If we are at war, it is an imperative to know what is true. And I'll go back to this as well. And to your point about being from Jamaica, and this is what irks me so much, because coming from Jamaica as a young boy, I heard that this is the land of opportunity. You work hard and it'll pay off. And I come here and I see so many Americans pissing away the freedoms and the rights in which they have, right? And the reason why they're doing that, because they don't even know that they have it. They don't even have a clue in the power in which they have. That founding documentation, not only that, they said that America is a Christian nation. And they poo-poo that. No, it's not. If it is not, then guess what will reign? Evil will then reign. In the Bible, it talks about a good God. That's an important thing to have, a good God. And in the Constitution, it says that our rights was given to us by God. And the Bible says that God is a good God. So in which the rights that we have is for us to be fruitful and to multiply. So whenever I look at that, I look at the abounding freedom and grace in which America has, which even in my homeland of Jamaica is beautiful, but you know what is filled with? Corruption. Africa is beautiful. You know what is filled with? Corruption. The thing about America can only be great is if it's good. And whenever I say good, I mean a moral good. So whenever I go back, and I'll go back to what I was saying about ridding yourself of contradictions. Iron sharpens iron. So as for men, as for human beings, if we desire to be better, we have to be able to point out to each other where we have faults. And whenever we are able to point that out, we're able to then say, you know what, you're right. I can do better because I should know better. And once you know better, you can then do better. So whenever I look at these things, and we were touching on it earlier. So we look at these pioneers. We look at Martin Luther King. We look at Rosa Parks. We look at these individuals that said, you know what? Yes, there are laws, but not all laws are good. And whenever we point to good, that's whenever we start to get into the realm of morality. And in America, I see that our foundation in which we desire to lay now is based on science. Science will never, ever be able to define or give reason for morality. That's where spirituality then comes in.
Well, let's talk about even why those laws were changed, right? It wasn't, they didn't change those laws because it was a good thing. They changed it because it was an economical thing. Like us boycotting and not riding, getting on the back of the bus or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Now we're messing with their money. So it's
Well,
not
well,
even a,
so to that specific point, and I'm glad you brought that up. And I'm sorry to cut you off, but I believe this is an important interjection, because whenever Jesus did the same thing, Jesus went, and there was a man who was a lunatic, mad, crazy. He had demonic possession, and Jesus tossed the demons out of him into the pigs. And that man who couldn't talk and was out of his mind was then whole again. And then the people came and they saw that, hey, this man who was living in this cave or whatever, and he was broken, busted up, couldn't even talk. Now he's sane again. But then they turned and they say, you know what? We understand that, but we don't care about that. You done sent our pigs off the hill, and that is our economics right there that you done sent off into the water. So they were not caring about the individual. They were not caring about the person. They were caring about the economics. And whenever we disassociate the individual and the financial gains, because that's what slavery was, tying those two together, you are a property. You are a form of property. Therefore, anybody who comes in and tries to then impact our economics is a problem. So it wasn't just black people that liberated themselves. Oh no, white people, which many people don't care about. They don't even want to have interest in that. Black people didn't liberate themselves. It was a human effort. A human effort. Whenever we are
Why
able to then,
why was it a human effort though? What
because
sparked that? I know the answer, but I'm gonna let you go.
what sparked it was the conscience of men. Then whenever men override their conscience, because again, even with the level of fairness,
Shay, you want
because
to take
again,
this one?
go ahead.
It was definitely not the fairness of or the consciousness of people. Capitalism. America only cares about money. That's it. And at any point in time, if the money is affected, change has to be made. That's it boils down, the root is the money. So you follow the money, you follow where the laws are, you follow everything. You follow tax law, you follow laws that are being changed locally, on the state level, federally. When you follow that, that's the only thing that's going to give it change, which is why most people think that Bank of America, when they came out with that mortgage loan, to give additional down payment and assistance to people of color, it wasn't because they morally wanted to do something fair. Let's be serious. Anytime the system isn't working, right? And the system hasn't been working because they created the system to where it doesn't work for us, right? But it cannot totally rule us out because we are an important part of building and sustaining this economy. So in the event that we're ruled out as black people, it's going to be an economic problem for them
Okay.
and an economic downfall for them. So they have to at least put certain things in place to keep us going, but it's up to us to aspire more and greater so that we can give that next generation a head start from where we came from. Like our mentality now, all of us should be to acquire things for the next generation. Forget what's happening or what we can do for ourselves in this moment. We have to be thinking 1, 2, 3 generations ahead and not trying to overspend and really acquiring different investments and positioning our families to be able to sustain wealth and positioning people to be able to manage the wealth that we are creating right now.
Even
Shay,
to the
what do you
point of
think about? No, I was just going to say to Shay, to your point. What do you think about keeping the black dollar in the black community?
I think we definitely have to have a system to keep the black dollar in the black community. The Asian people,
Go
the
ahead. Go ahead.
Asian, hold on,
Go
Asian
ahead.
people are everywhere in the world. I don't know if y'all noticed they're in Africa. They are
Jamaica.
in
Heavy.
Jamaica.
Heavy.
They are everywhere. And when I say they are everywhere, they are getting tax breaks to start businesses. They are getting tax breaks to build homes in their own communities in other countries. It's not just the United States. They have an agenda, okay? And when they do come over to different countries, no matter if they're in Africa, if they're in India, if they are here in the United States, if they're in Jamaica, no matter where they are, they're bringing their own people over to work and to be able to reap the benefits. And they're sending the money back to their country and their people. They circulate their dollars. They
So
create
Wait, but
I
what
was
my question, my reason for that question is when you have the option of who you choose your money with, who you spend your money with, do you feel like it's preferential to other? Did you say Chinese or did you say Asian?
I said Asian.
Asian. So that even includes Indians. I know for a fact the Indian
Mhm.
community is very tight knit, and if they had the choice, they definitely would keep their dollar within the Indian community. So the reason why I asked that question is I think that we as a people still, many of us still look at the service offerings of our own people as of lesser quality. And I think that that's still an issue. I think
no.
that it's a legitimate thing that, and not talking about you prototype, I'm using an example, right? Let's say prototype software development company needs their taxes done. There's a very good chance if they look, if they Google CPA in their area, that Sally McNicholas may get chosen over Shay McNuckles because Shay McNuckles appears to be black and her name is Shay.
Mhm.
You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like
Yeah.
oftentimes that happens. We
Oh,
do
it
it.
does.
We do
Yeah,
it to our own people.
Hold
yes.
on,
Oh,
Dwayne. Hold on, Dwayne.
and then it's being done to us. I don't know how many people I've hired. I have a somewhat diverse team now, but when I first started, oh, I had different people come in, but after day one, they didn't come back. And then I've even had someone, another black woman like myself, tell me, "Don't you need a diverse team?" What do you
Mm,
mean diverse? I'm a
mm,
black woman with other black women, a black man. That's diversity. What do you mean diverse? So we are programmed to think of it in an entirely different way. And that's why we have to be able to create these seats at the tables to know that it's possible. And I know we talked about that $1 million money. We have to get there
right.
because we have to start creating those spaces. Because somewhere or another, everyone thinks a black business owner does business bad and it's just terrible and it's the worst experience. And I'm never doing business with another black business
Yep.
owner again.
Yep.
I spent $73,000 last year on different black business owners that didn't probably quite deliver, but it's not going to affect my decision in doing business with another minority business owner going forward. It doesn't. It's the nature of doing business. And sometimes you just have to know it's just the cost of doing business. And unfortunately, a lot of us aren't business owners. We wasn't raised in environments where we were able to scale like that beyond the mom and pop. We were still sole proprietors or self-employed instead of business owners. So there is a lot of learning that has to take place because it's a huge learning curve.
But is there the ability or availability to scale?
Yes.
And and whenever I look at that, that's the thing that gets me, because again, I've mentioned this before on this platform as for the difference between equality of opportunity and equality of outcomes. The United States life is not fair. So we look at these things as for fair, it should be fair. Life in itself is not fair. It's not fair that I'm not able to play in the NBA because I'm 5'6" or 5'5". All right. That's not fair that everybody else in the NBA is 6 foot plus. That's not fair. We should come up with a tax that taxes those people that play in the NBA and then give me the income or for the taxes because of that inequality. Life is not fair. And I'm not looking for that to be recomped or reparations for that. What I can do though is look to see that there is the opportunity to start my own business. And the thing about it is, as for from what you were saying earlier, prototype, as the level of ignorance, I will then be in great I'll own that portion of the ignorance, to then see that I don't see those things as a barrier for me. Kanye made the comment that raised up some smoke and some stank, because he said slavery is a invisible wall. And I do agree with that. It is, because that creates a barrier in which we think that we're owned by someone or something, which is not true. Shay, you went out and did your own thing, right?
I
So
did, but can I
Shay's
go to
obsessional.
yeah,
right? I'm an
Say is what?
exception, but can
She's
I go
obsessional.
to? Can I still go to Bank of America, who I had a 21-year relationship with, and ask them for a $500,000 line of credit? I would, as a black woman, there are more contingencies for me to be able to do that versus
don't
That's
my
not
credit
true.
card.
don't see those contingencies. Don't even
That-
think about those contingencies. And
Hold
the
They're
on.
reason
Let me
why,
let
there.
me let me let me educate y'all real quick because I did study on this. This is what I got my information on. The if you have, I mean, if you have your stuff together as it relates to a business owner, and you're more likely to get. I did this study, Shay. Okay,
I don't. I live it
you
every
you
day for the
I
past
know you're going,
14
but you're
years.
going, but that's
You,
anecdotal
and
though.
I no, and it's not anecdotal when I work with over 1,000 clients, and most of them are small business clients
All
who
right, and so what is their credit
are in
score?
the same position
What's their average
as
credit score?
me.
What's their average credit score?
So, okay, if that was the case, they
No, answer the
totally
question.
made it
Answer that
much more
question.
easier
Answer
now
that
with
question. What's
the
their
COVID
average credit
rules
score?
and the
What's
changes.
their average credit score?
The average credit score is, I have an 800 credit
I
score.
didn't ask
So,
you that.
you
and
do,
I
you
didn't ask
do.
you that.
But
I didn't
yes,
ask.
and
but I'm
prototype
still
said you were
facing the
exceptional.
same challenge. But I'm saying I have an
Listen.
800 credit score. Hold on.
Okay.
And I'm still facing the same challenges. Let me tell you, because I went and bought a Porsche, right?
Okay.
They, an 800 credit score, zero down. Thing. Boop, boop, boop. The guy said, "Oh, you were gonna." I thought he was gonna come back and say anything, but everything you said in your offer, they accepted. Right? Do you know?
You
They
paused.
said they wouldn't allow me to drive off the lot with my car. Can y'all
Why
hear
did they
me?
say?
I
Yeah, we
can
can
hear
hear you. I'm saying. I'm once again. You're
They
giving
wouldn't
me an.
allow me to drive off the lot with my car because I had out of state driver's license. No, they told me, "Oh, your lender requires you to have a Texas driver's license." I called my lender on the phone. The lender
You breaking up, Shay.
you.
You have to fix that connection.
Look,
Okay.
what she's
Definitely.
speaking to though,
okay.
um, Georgia. I'm in Georgia. Um, I also, until I switched my license to Georgia, I could not purchase a car here. Um,
But
that's just
that's
It's
not
the
a Texas
not
law.
because you're black though, is it?
But
no.
that's
It
not
wasn't
a
because I'm
Texas
black,
law.
and I'm about. I think I'm about to agree with you, humble dad, with whatever about you, whatever you're about to say. But it goes back to my point, a level of ignorance that we have. That once we think it's like the monkey and banana analogy. I heard that one, right?
I don't
Yeah.
remember. It's vague.
So it's like you put monkeys in a cage and you put a banana up in the cage and you shock whoever tried to eat the banana. Eventually you switch monkeys out and they'll start self-governing themselves, like the new monkey will try to go for the banana and the monkeys that's already in the cage will knock that monkey back down, like, nah, you'll get shot. Once you swap out all the monkeys that never seen any other monkey get shot, they'll still self-govern. Nobody will touch the banana. And it's a level of ignorance. Even if they took they took the shock away from the banana. So that's what goes on.
It is a level of ignorance, but when you know your stuff, because I'm a woman who always knows her stuff. So then I say, "Oh, Texas law says this. You don't even have to have a license in Texas to drive off the lot with a car." Call my lender on the phone. Lender said this is not our concession. That must be the dealership in itself. I called the dealership. They I called the dealership. The leadership doesn't have anything like that in writing to say that I can't.
Sounds like you got a
Okay.
lawsuit on your hands.
For sure. So,
Exactly.
but what I
So
just
I
asked
know
you though.
how I handle business, but I'm saying I went in there, 800 credit score, I already knew my numbers, everything, gave him all my paperwork, and then I say, okay, well, I'll give my mom will give her license, and she'll drive off with the car. No, she can't do that either.
So why
Hey,
would they
hey,
give you? Hold on, Dwayne. Why would they get? Why would you be able to get there and do all this paperwork for them to be like, you know what, you can't get out of here because you're black? Like the sequence of events doesn't even make sense. It would make more sense for them not to even give you the opportunity to purchase if it
They
because
was
give
you
me
because
black.
the
you're
opportunity to purchase because I'm your perfect ideal client
what
on
I'm saying
paper.
is, hold on, Dwayne. What I'm saying is, you let's go with your situation. Let's say that there was a racist situation, all right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's still anecdotal. Most black people do not listen to what I'm saying to you. Okay,
No, this
I've read
happened.
several. Listen, Shay.
Mm-mm.
Okay,
It happened.
with all due respect, okay, I did research on this for like 5 years. Okay, all right. So I'm telling you, I used to think the exact same thing until I started reading that the information that has been told to us is incorrect. Right. So what I'm saying to you is that most black people credit score is low. Period. Okay. Most black people that do businesses don't have a business plan. Most black people
That
that
is
do a
not
business.
what. Tell me where
Listen,
that was required
No,
to
what,
have
no, what he said, what
an
he,
listen. What I'm
what
saying is, are
personal
you
credit
listen?
score to
Listen. Now
get
you in your
money from the
feelings. Now
bank.
you
the
in your feelings.
keyword,
I'm trying.
keyword is
Oh,
Dwayne,
most.
I got
I'm
it.
not, man.
Dwayne, I
The
got it.
keyword is most.
Dwayne, I got it. Listen, I used to
No,
think the
man.
exact same thing before I started my research to get my doctorate degree. I thought the exact same thing. Okay. So, with all due respect, I'm telling you, I read it and I said, this can't be true. And I went to go read more information about it. And even when I did research and ask questions to black entrepreneurs that had businesses for several years, their number one thing about why they were what their hurdle was only two of them out of, I think it was like 50. I just say because out of 50 even said that the color of their skin had anything to do with why they weren't successful. There was more people that said, I think it was probably like 10 to 12 people that said it was because there was not they feel like black people are not excellent in what they do. Okay. There was other people that said they don't feel like black people had the financing, right? But they did not allude it to because they were not able to borrow. The majority of people, the reason why they're not able to borrow is because of their credit score. Then we channel it down to welfare. Do you know that the reason why welfare is created is for white people? But we've been conditioned to think it's for black people. Okay, there are more white people on welfare than there are black people. Like there's not even close. It's not even close, right? So what I'm saying is that we have come to a point in place that we think that the man is the reason why we're not where we needed to be, right? Because we have made leaps and bounds, and we're going to transition, right? I'm gonna let you say what you're going to say, but I'm saying I thought the exact same thing
I
before I
want to
studied.
know what's the population of the people that were presented because we want we want to act like it's still not an issue, but
What
it's
part?
still
What part is not an issue?
that race doesn't play a factor.
We're not
And
acting like that.
We're not acting like
We're
that.
not
That's
acting
what
like
I'm
okay,
that.
so
saying.
what are we acting like?
What I'm saying is that the claim that you made was that the reason why the black people can't get a loan is because they black, and I'm saying that ain't it. It's because they don't have the things that are required to get a loan. I got a house. I bought a house, Shay. Okay, should I use myself as the anecdote to say that it can be done? Right? I bought a house, and my late wife didn't even work. Okay, I had a great credit score. I was only
Now,
making 70. Listen, I was
but
only making
it's different
70,000 at the time.
levels to this though. And maybe we're talking about at the different levels. Yeah,
Okay,
if you
what's the
down
different
here,
level? And I bought in
if
a
you're
white
talking about
neighborhood, Shay.
here and here,
I bought in a
it,
white neighborhood, Shay.
the access is different. And
What's different?
the
So
access is different.
because
Because
you know as well as I know,
ask
you
Pharaoh
don't
how
know
many
if a
banks she
person
went
is
to.
black when you do the when you do
Ask
their
Pharaoh how
taxes.
many banks she went to. Ask her how many banks she went to fund her project.
Let me ask
Ask
you
her.
this. I can ask her, but you know this though. Pharaoh raised $2 million. She black.
And who helped Pharaoh raise $2 million?
Is she black though? She raised
No,
two
no,
million
no, no,
dollars.
no. I got those from my investor friends. These are private money lenders,
Okay.
not
I'm
bankers.
right, but y'all feel what I'm
Private.
saying? She's a black woman.
You're definitely
Who,
exceptional, Shay. I just
right.
wanted to. Your
Yeah.
immediate sphere is
No,
also
that was
exceptional.
private. That was all
You're
private.
I'm just
So,
saying
Private.
your immediate sphere is exceptional. Your clientele are also probably very exceptional. Now, I'm not disqualifying what you're saying, but I'm just going to go ahead and reiterate that you are exceptional. I just
I,
want
Yeah.
to
Thank
put that
you.
out
I
I do.
appreciate that.
I do want to say that Shay. Yes, I'll come chime in on that. Yes, you are an exceptional. You are exceptional, and that's something to be to hold near and dear, right? Because what HD was saying is you're not most, and also that might also then be in your sphere of influence because the company you keep then will be a projection of who then you are. So I'm pretty sure you're not surrounding yourself with people with bad credit score.
With the
That's just my
average person, you're not around the average
you're
black
above
person.
average, which is what's up. But then I'll also then say this from the American standpoint: America is a capitalist nation, and capitalist means that hey, it can be mutual. It can be mutual. So like if you have money to spend and they have a service to offer, that's up to you in order to go there and spend your money with them. So as for that Porsche dealership, I honestly and truly, I I wish they would, right? I'll go to them and they're going to give me any kind of anything. I'll go to the next dealership. Why? Because it's my money. And guess what? If they desire, that's what they're in business for. They're not in business to pick and choose it. And if that's their business will suffer for that. But for me, I'm going to go to the place that's going to desire to give me good service, and then in exchange to have a good customer. And in that, it's a reciprocating. So for that, I'm not in it for the crony capitalism. I'm not in it for the consumer who's just trying to get everything that I can just because. No, I'm in it for good service, and in that, it's a mutual agreement. So as for America, as for capitalism, capitalism works. So for me, if there's and I did this during COVID, I despise the mask. I despise wearing it. I looked at the mask like a place having a blacks only or whites only sign out there. That's how I treated the mask. So any place that I walked into and I did not have a mask on and they said, sir, you need a mask and you can't shop here, I'm like, latest, I'll go to the next business
So
up the
you
street.
weren't being submissive.
Oh,
That's,
absolutely not. Absolutely not, because I saw,
right.
and that goes back to what you're saying. And the same thing was Rosa Parks submitted. No, she's like, nah, man, I ain't getting up. Well, Martin Luther King in the same thing is like, hey, I'm not being submissive. I'm just not going to go the violent route, but I'm gonna do my thing though because that's my right to do. And if you want to send the dogs, send the dogs. If you're gonna send the hose, send the hose. But either way, you gonna be in the
Hey,
wrong.
watch your words, bro.
What you mean, send the dogs?
No, that ain't what you said. But right, so what? And that makes sense. What I'm saying is, I'm gonna say it like this: racism exists, but not in the way that most people view it. And I've done this study for maybe like 6, 7 years. Okay, so I'm simply saying that even though it does exist, it shouldn't matter because like the people that we celebrate when it comes to like Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks and Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, we always salute these people who overcame the racism. We always salute these people, but then it says, and then we come back and say, "Oh man, it's just so bad. We just can't get it done." Well, that's not true. That's the slave mentality that tells you that it can't get done. That's that invisible wall that's being talked about, right? And
Well,
so
I'm not saying that it can't. I don't want to say that it can't be done because it can, but more challenges are still presented because of it. And
Those are opportunities.
you can look at them as opportunities. You can look at them any way you choose to because that is perspective, right? But it does happen. And I'm
it
not
is the reason why though, Shay, is
sit
because
at
in
this
the
table
reason.
and act like it doesn't.
But I'm saying the reason why it is an opportunity, that was the whole reason why Greenwood was able to exist in Oklahoma. The
And
reason
then
why
what happened?
the reason why it was so financially stable is because of Jim Crow. You realize that, right?
No, I did not.
It presented an opportunity to where you can only buy from black people. And so, because you can only buy from black people, the dollar is circulating in that particular community and didn't leave for at least a year, which means that you're able to have an economic growth. They also found, just like we always talk about, mom and dad in the house, right? They had Greenwood had I think it was two. They had two newspapers. They were even loaning money to Wall Street, right? So they were, but soon they were economically stable. And as soon as the transition, we'll talk about what would you teach your child about Martin Luther King Jr. But I'm gonna just preface it about civil rights for lack of time. Because of civil rights, okay, it dismantled the black family. It dismantled the businesses that were going on. Madam C.J. Walker was the first millionaire, right? I think, or woman, one of the two, right? But soon as civil rights came, her businesses started to devalue, to decrease, because black women were starting to shop other places. Did you even know that in the education system, they wanted to stay intact? They didn't want to go to white schools. Like there were superintendents and teachers that were against civil rights because they knew that they were going to be out of jobs. Because what? We just said that over here on the other side of town, they're not going to go hire no black person. So that meant people were out of jobs. So that leads me to ask this question. What's your thoughts on civil rights? Was it good or bad for us? You may go.
Man, that's a good perspective, AC. As I look back at it, there are many things that were not good about the whole civil rights movement, or from a political standpoint, because I think just like what you're alluding at earlier, Shay, as for dealing with economics, I think it's also it's not just economics, it's also political expediency. So like they saw it coming, and there's no way to get away from it. So they had to do something to I guess quench the situation. And in the way that they did, they introduced the civil rights bill, which there was a lot of negative things that came from it. But I did want to bring this up. I'm not sure if many people realize, like Martin Luther King. There's a lot of statements that he made. The judge me not based off the color of my skin, but the content of my character. That was good. But I'm not sure if many people know that he said we may be able to get a Negro president in less than 40 years, and he said that back in 1964. So 1964, that would have been 89. He said that we had the potential as America to have a Negro president, black president, by 1989. That's how much advancement he saw in our society. The separation of the whole whites and the segregation at that time. But then to that, what you're saying also, HD, was some blacks did not desire to go to white school, but then also I heard a segregationist say that it's unconstitutional to force people to segregate, and it's also unconstitutional to force people to desegregate that don't desire to, if that is their will. If they desire to segregate, allow them to. If they desire to desegregate, allow them to. But then to be the law that comes in to then force that to happen, that can cause negative repercussions, because it's also your environment, knowing the places in which you're in, and allowing those people to then make their decisions on a local level rather than a federal level. So I do see that as for the civil rights movement, although it did give positives, there's quite a bit of negatives that was a precursor of it as well. But again, in order to create a more perfect union, in which the United States is a union, in order to create a more perfect, we have to then be able to see those things and then be able to reconcile them together constructively.
Prototype, what you got on it?
It didn't help us, right? But at the same time, I mean, there were some things that that helped. My thinking is this: um, with all this going on, there's still a Chinatown. There's still like Jamaican, you know. In, I don't know if you go to New York. There's like a Jamaican. I don't want to call it Jamaican town, but you know what I mean. We weren't just.
Caribbean.
It kind of sucked that we weren't able to have a plan on the other side of it. You know what I'm saying? We were just thinking that integration was just going to. That's all we needed, and we learned that we needed an actual plan on how to manage to keep our resources. You know what I'm saying? So that it didn't help us because we didn't essentially have the plan long term. But um, I wouldn't go backwards. I would say move forward with what we can do and how we can still get things together.
King, what
I'll,
you got? Oh, Shay, go ahead, Shay.
I was just gonna say, I'm with Prototype here. I feel like it helped, but there are certain things where we didn't have a plan or resources, like our great Jewish friends, right? And we wasn't provided anything, so it was just like go out there, you turn 18, get it how you live kind of thing. When your mom kicks you out at 18 or whatever and says, figure it out, you're an adult now and go out here and figure out life. So I will say that it was beneficial, but until we are able to come together with the actual plan that's going to start to mitigate a lot of the damage that has been done, we'll continually be set back. And HD, I know you said you bought a house in a nice neighborhood, so that's a benefit from
I
that,
just
right?
said a white neighborhood.
A white neighborhood. But Wells Fargo did settle with the Department of Justice in regards to their fair lending practices against Black people. So let's just be honest here and say that it happens. And so we may not understand the magnitude of what's happening, but as far as the civil rights movement is concerned, I think it did us some good, and it gave us a starting point, and so we should have had a plan, but we didn't, and lack of ignorance. Ignorance, us not knowing what we can have access to, and just being submissive for so long to not even requesting one and making sure that they abide by that which they agreed to. So those are my thoughts.
That's what's up, King. What you got?
Yeah, I mean, I can't see myself saying that it wasn't um, good per se. Uh, I guess if you are in the midst of a level of social injustice that I don't think anybody on this panel um, will ever quite experience in the same way that it was. I think that any type of movement, change in position, action, so to speak, opposite of just acceptance, right, is a positive. And for those who say that it isn't, I would ask, what would you have done? Right. And until I can get a clear answer or a perspective on that would make some sort of sense, or that may have instigated a different outcome. It's easier to come up with things once you figured out something else didn't work out in the way that it was designed to. And so I think that's part of the problem, right? So if you aren't active, right, or you hadn't experienced quite what they experienced, it's very easy to critique and criticize. You mentioned submission earlier, and I began to think about, okay, and we're talking about Martin Luther King and things like that. I think oftentimes he's criticized by his methods. Some may say were a little too passive, nonviolent sometimes, comes across as passive, so to speak, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you are cooperating, right? And if you aren't cooperating, so to speak, you are rebelling against, nevertheless. And there is a certain bravery, so to speak, and just as we talked about in our young men, it seems to be innately already there. Hey, I'm standing for something. I stand firmly on my beliefs. I'm righteous, so to speak, and regardless of what the consequence is, I'm still going to stand on that. That takes a certain level of courage that we just can't have from our chair. So civil rights movement, or taking a stance against injustice, how could it not be good for a people?
Agreed.
Yeah. So I'll say this. I don't know how and if it would have continued as long as it did, because I was looking at this map, and I think it's there in America. Not all of America desired for slavery. We started splitting earlier than 1789, where there was a difference between free states. Each states after the 13 colonies, as they started to add states that designated themselves as either free or slave states. Whether they allowed for slavery to happen within their territory, or whether they did not allow it. So it wasn't an innate thing where throughout all of America there was slavery. There were people who, and better yet, states. There's state rights. I think it's the 10th Amendment that allows for states' rights to allow for them to make their own decisions in what they're going to do. So even within that, there was a distinction in America between, as for the slavery or the treatment, better yet, of people. How are you going to treat these people that are different than you early on? And as more states got added to the Union, some at the point of the Civil War decided to then what's the word, annex themselves or dissolve from the Union, and that's where we then had the Civil War. And we fought, and in the Bible, and I think they even say this, the great sin of America was slavery. And from a biblical standpoint, the atoning of sin is blood, or the shedding of blood, and or innocent blood. There's some instances where some of those people that fought in the Civil War just fought because there's black people that fought on both sides, whether you on the Confederates, the side fighting for slavery, or the Union fighting against slavery. There's black people on both sides fighting that war. Thankfully, I will say, thank God that the Union won, because if the Union did not win, we wouldn't be sitting here and having this conversation that we're having, because the rights, that's what we're talking about. Is as for authority means that you have the rights. Yielding meaning you're yielding to someone that has the right away. So in that, we now can sit here and we can have these conversations because we have the right and rights to be able to have that. And there is no level of ignorance in that. I say it boldly, and I will proclaim it, because I am free, and I will continue to be free until I then decide not to be free. And I think that's the privilege and the right that we all have, that's sitting here in this chat, and that is given to us by that flag, the United States, the ground in which we're all on currently. And as an immigrant to this country, I am appreciative of what we have, but what we have can be removed from us. And the only way that it can be removed from us is if we allow it. So that's something that I will hold on to, that we do have the rights to be free until we relinquish that right.
Go ahead, King. It's on you.
So one question I kind of want to throw out there for the listeners is, when we talk about freedom, one of the main things that's constantly talked about is financial freedom. So we actually have a resource right here on this panel. Shay, what would be your best advice to people who are kind of lost when it comes to credit repair and kind of don't know necessarily what that next step is they need to take to not be disqualified for reasons such as, so to speak, how do you get to that point of 800 credit score, and were you always there, or what
I started at 550. So I started at 550, and this was back in 2010, before I had my son, and this was before credit repair was like a thing. I just was reading and was repairing my credit. I didn't know anything about credit. Because I wasn't taught that. So I started repairing my own credit and just disputing things. And I found out, oh, you can dispute things. You can write letters. I was just doing it for myself. And so I hit
So there
800.
was an ignorance there.
There was an ignorance there. There was. And so I just started doing it for myself, and I didn't hit 800 until 2021. I'm still not like a credit guru or anything like that. It's just what I have found that works. But I think education is key, and just trying to connect with um like-minded people where you're trying to go. And sometimes that's you creating that, honestly, because I found myself searching for that. Like, it wasn't until last year I found a group of women who already earned $1 million in their business to show me how I can reach $1 million in my business. I had been looking for that. I had been aspiring for that, but not nowhere in my circles people were doing that, right? And so it was just me reading and figuring it out. And this whole process is ignorance. It is. But I get what Dwayne says when it's like the opportunity is there. Yes. However, you still will face those conditions. I cannot sit here and say that you won't and that it isn't a factor, because it still is. And the thing about it is we have to be the exception. And I think that's part of the problem too. My counterparts, I'm sitting in a room with other women who have million, multi-million dollar businesses with other men, white males specifically, who have the same and not nearly as exceptional. And the conversations that we say about them in our little circles is like dumb as a box of rocks. It's
That's
still,
the new problem, Shay. I say that's the thing we're facing now, is that in order for us to be anything, right, we have to be the exceptional ones.
and that's the problem.
And that is now
That's
the
not that's
problem.
that's not the
That's
And
problem.
that
But
is
that's an
the
see,
problem.
opportunity. That's an opportunity.
That is a problem when you
That's
have
the
somebody who
problem.
just writes something on a blank sheet of paper and
let me
say,
see,
I want to change the world. And they say,
let
okay,
me
I'm gonna give you $1 million to
but
There's only one Michael Jordan.
let me say this. Let me say this because I just want to circle it back to what HD said though. He said that there are certain instances where it's not race. It's there's certain instances where we don't have the credit score, right?
Mhm.
And so when we bring in ignorance, and then we also bring in the mass majority of Black people who do have a certain credit score not having access to the social elite, when we
Mhm.
ask certain questions like this, even still, and I'm not saying your answer was bad, Shay, it still didn't give them any steps besides go read, right? And I think that's part of the problem. So I'm just
Yeah.
putting out a call to action that listen, if you do have credit counselors, if you do have gurus, look, hit Humble
Oh,
Dad
you can.
and
I
hit Humble Dad.
definitely
Wait,
would give
wait a
access
second.
to my
Hit
team.
hit hit Humble
Yeah.
Dad and ask to be on the panel because I think that we are in need of solution. Yeah, books are always out there, but we know our people aren't reading.
Yeah.
You know what
But
I'm
you
saying?
asked me what was my approach. I'm like, that was my approach. Now I'll refer out to Bianca or to Michelle and say, hey, go get your credit repaired with those two people because they're reputable. Now, if you want resources, the thing about me is I give out all my resources, but some people don't execute. And that is the thing. It's the execution. Yes, you can have the access, but you also have to execute at that high level as well, even to be in the playing field. And I'm talking about a different playing field, honestly, because a six-figure business, that's nothing. A seven-figure business, now we talking a business that I can sell for multi-millions and create generational wealth. I don't care. I don't care if I'm not a black owned business if I sold to H&R Block for 35 million because I already created generational wealth for myself and my family and for the generations to come. And so I have a process and I can go ahead and do the same thing and create another business and teach other people how to do
But
it.
why would if you're for the black people, why would you not sell it to a black millionaire?
Not
If
only
hold
not
on,
I'm
only
not.
that,
because
I'm just asking. Like you can sell it to
it
whoever
is
you want to, but
because you when you're thinking about generational wealth, in order to create that generational wealth, you need the wealth,
right. But
right?
there are black
So
people that are wealthy though, Shay.
if I already have the formula, it's about being able to build to sell. I'm building to sell. That's my
Right.
mentality.
But my
And
question is,
who
why
I'm
not sell to a black bank or a black?
if a
Uh,
black bank wants to buy me, I will gladly give it over to them.
so, but you
However,
said that you would sell to anybody, right? That
I
has the money,
will.
right?
But here's the
And I'm
thing.
saying that's the reason why it cannot stay. Like that's the situation that we have. If we
No,
talking,
because my goal is different. I'm
I
creating more of
know that
me
that means
to
that you're
be
not
able to
concerned
do the
about the
same
black people. You're
thing.
only concerned about your lineage.
No. So I think it. So like whenever you're on an airplane and they go through that whole spiel as for in case of emergency, put your face mask on first, and then worry about the chap next to you or even your own kid that's
Yeah,
next to
I
you.
get that. Yeah, I get
But
that.
but 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 in that, the reason why I bring that up is it a part of capitalism is worrying about yourself first, right? So I went to a chamber. I work for a
Yeah.
credit union,
All right,
and I
keep it
went to a
short.
I will. And I went to a Black Chambers of Commerce meeting, and after it, they were talking all about supporting Black businesses, right? And I'm all for supporting business, period, because I'm a capitalist. And if I desire the best thing, I'm going to go to the best person who is able to then accommodate me. I could care less what your skin
But
color is.
that's
Me,
different when you're selling. That's
no,
totally
No,
different.
no,
Yes, it
I'm
is.
not
right.
selling.
It's
No, no,
and
no, no.
let me just
Go ahead.
let me
explain it. I'm
just
sorry. I'll be very short.
Go
When
ahead.
I'm selling, right? My goal is to get to that place to sell, and now I'm becoming the buyer. I will acquire other black owned businesses to become a holding company of a larger public entity. Like
But that
the
contradicts your statement that
it
King
does
Rio said
not.
to you about should we keep the black dollar in house?
That is circulating the black dollar. Once you are able
Okay.
to liquidate and create generational wealth, and it's not just for myself but for my community, then I have the formula to be able to duplicate. I A part of it, I still need to be able to see the Rockefellers. What are the
wait a
Rockefellers doing?
second
How
though.
are
Wait
they
a second.
doing it?
The community, most of the community isn't there. I think sometimes we're still speaking to our immediate sphere. I think the majority of the community is probably working double shifts at the post office. They need to know how do they become a CPA, or they need prototype to tell them this is the certification that you need to get in IT somewhere so that you can make six figures by the end of the year. You know what I mean? This is the information that they need. We actually need just a
Yes.
power move first, and
I
then
would say
I
the
we'll
first
get
thing they
that,
need
but
to do is
I
print out
don't
their
like the
credit report.
incomplete power move though. See, it's so many coaches and mentors, and I like to be that complete person. I don't want someone to take me just to hear, right? If I'm going to provide a solution, and trust me, I have a vision in my head to provide a solution for my people, period, for my people, and it will involve that, but I can't just leave them there because I can't be the only millionaire in my circle. I can't have everybody around me not touching millions in my circle. So I have to get the formula first in order to be able to share it, because the only way we're going to affect our communities is if we're all, or if a certain group of us is in here together. And in order to do that, we got to have the formula. We have to know
Yeah,
the
I think
game
that's understood.
framework.
I'm not disagreeing with that at all. Not disagreeing with that at all. I was simply saying, based on your, like, I'm a capitalist myself, right? I don't shop just all black. That's not what I do, right? Okay, but I'm saying, based on your information, you said before that we should keep the dollar in house. Did you say that?
Yeah, I
In
do
your
think
house or
So
our house?
she said in the black community.
I said
Okay.
it's important that we circle the black
Okay.
dollar. It is
So
very
if
important.
it's a right, so if so with that same information, that's a low scale. A dollar is a low scale, but if we talk about 35 million, right? Magic Johnson, Mark Cuban both have 35 million. You're saying you're gonna give it to whoever, right? I'm saying if you're literally talking about creating generational wealth, then you would sell it to Magic Johnson. That's what I'm saying that
I'm,
you would do based on your own
I would
info,
sell
based
it
on
to
your own
Magic
definition.
Johnson if him and Mark Cuban both offered 35 million. But I think what's not being understood is, in order, the money, the capital is needed, period, at the highest level that you can create it, so that you can duplicate it and create other businesses and buy other businesses and acquire and merge other entities together and truly build this conglomerate that it needs to be. And that's going to take time, and it's going to take strategy. And honestly, you need the money, you need the M's, the double M's, to be able to create that.
That's a bet. You got the last word, Dwayne. Go ahead.
And I say that's something I struggle with. Like, I look back, just like what I was making mention earlier. Whenever I went to that Chambers of Commerce meeting, and it was about supporting black businesses, I was thinking to myself, and there was a whole bunch of black businesses there, and they even showed this little app they had, that you can go on the app and look for black owned businesses, and you can see which businesses are black owned. I'm like, oh, that's cool. What if there was an app for white only or white owned business? Would we consider that racist? And whenever I ask those questions, like whenever we go to do the same thing and say, well, whites should support white businesses, do we consider that racist? Whenever we say blacks should shop at black owned business or give our money to, is that considered racist? Because I look at it just as that it is racist, even if it's black to black, because I desire to support good businesses, and I could care less if you're black, Asian, white, whatever, just as long as you have a good service. That's what I desire. I desire good service, and I could care less of your skin color. And that's the same thing as what Martin Luther King said: judge me based off the content of my character, the content of the baked goods that you have, the contents of the salespeople that you have working for you, the integrity that they have. That's the content. I could care less about the skin color. And I think if you prototype, like you said, I'll take the word. If that is ignorant of me to consider it that way, I'll own it, because I don't. Whenever I look at a community, my community is not just made up of black people, and if I do look at it like that, I'm missing a huge portion of humans in which I have the opportunity to service in a humanitarian way, like not treating them less than. And that's the thing that we have a problem with. We have a problem with people treating us less than. So if you look at a business, right, and you put those businesses on two levels, and you be like, oh, okay, these are two businesses, but then because they're black owned, they elevate. That's putting them on a different playing field. I don't care if they're black. I'm wanting the service level to increase, and that's what drives competition. Because if you're just supporting these businesses just because they're black and they're providing subpar product or service, They won't improve. And that's the same thing I look at it whenever I go into an interview. If I go into an interview and they say, well, sir, I'm sorry you didn't get the job. I'm like, dang, I didn't get it because I'm black. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to just dwell in that zone where I didn't get the job because I was black, and I will never go back to the drawing board and improve myself as a person, because I will always be stuck with that victimhood mentality. And I don't desire that. I desire to be like, guess what? I could go back and I could sharpen my skills and I could hone my skills. And it's because of something that I was lacking as a person in what I contain. And there's more that I can deliver as an individual outside of the color of my skin. I don't desire people to see the glasses I wear, the shirt I wear, the content. You should know them by their fruits, what they produce. And that's what I look at. I don't look at people for the color of their skins, because I am no better than who we would then consider racist.
So you're saying we should just
But they
pick
do
ourselves up by our
benefit.
bootstraps, huh?
No, I'm saying that we deal with the cards that we are dealt, and we don't look at somebody's hand and looking and saying, well, you got a better hand than me. No, I'm saying play the cards that you were dealt. We're all dealt cards, right? And guess what? We ain't got no say so. You didn't choose the color of your skin. You didn't choose your eye color. You didn't choose your facials, the hair on your face. You didn't choose that. There are certain things that we just did not choose. So how do we then deal with it? And we get into this whole tribal mentality that, oh, well, he's got this color eyes, or he's got this and he's got that. And I said, get outside of that. And that's what Martin Luther King was saying. That's the content. It's what you produce as an individual and as a person. And the Bible says it specifically like this. It says, to each by their own ability. I can't jump like Michael Jordan. That's his ability. I can't look at him and envy and be jealous of what he has. And if I was as tall as he was, guess what? I just have to work as hard, if not harder, to get where he is. But guess what?
Let's bring it to a close. We're gonna bring
Other
it to a
people
close.
have a head start over
But that's just
us.
what it
So
is, though, Shay. Everybody,
no, it ain't just what it is.
that's what it
Because
is.
in order for me to be able to level the playing field, I have to ensure that my son has a head start, just like just like the
That
Rockefellers,
is your
the
job.
Kennedys, to
That is your
ensure.
job.
But it's not just my son, it's my community as well. So I do specifically, I want to work with Black people because I want to be able to provide that feedback, that constructive feedback, and say, hey, so that you can grow. Hey, these are the systems. Because what I've realized is that different phases of businesses requires different technologies, right? Most of us don't even understand or can't even think of the capacity of the technologies that we use when we were bootstrapping to truly building out, automating, systemizing, right? So I am going to work with Black business owners so I can provide that feedback. So, and it's in a safe environment. So, yes, you're going to make mistakes. I would rather you make that mistake with me, because I will extend grace and give you the feedback, because I want to see you win. I want to see you grow. I want to see your children have a head start. I want to see you be up here with me. So in order to do that, I need to shop you. You need to be my partner. And we have to be able to have a relationship where we can give that feedback back and forth so that we can grow, share resources. That's how Farrah was able to pull 2 million. We
Is that
share resources.
I'm going to tell you
We go King Rio, and then we go prototype, and then we got to get out of here.
That I agree with that piece, and I'm going to say, even to your point, Dwayne, I will say I am personally intentional about giving a Black professional an opportunity first, right? Because if I don't give them an opportunity, I don't really always I don't have an opportunity to experience the quality of product or service that they have to offer.
But why wouldn't they have that opportunity by default? By default, anybody.
And so with that being said, when it was time for a tax advisor, I asked another Black person within my immediate sphere, who are you using? And then they gave me a Black person in their immediate sphere who was exceptional.
Yeah.
I gave that person an opportunity, and they are exceptional. I can never see myself leaving, right? Every year they're providing exceptional service. right? So even if it's a small shop like that, or even if it's wealthy African Americans or people of color, New Year's probably the largest adult beverage day of the year. I had an opportunity. I knew I wanted tequila, right? And I had a decision to make. I know Don Julio to me is good, right? Now I said, but I cannot pretend like I didn't see Sean Combs doing his commercial about De Leon. So I asked. I go in the store and I ask. I said, brother, do you know? The guy working behind the counter? Do you know what this De Leon tastes like? To be honest with you, I don't know. The sister down there probably knows. I said, sister, you know what this De Leon? She says, you know what? It's smooth. It's good. I said, okay, well, the Reposado or the Blanco, she says both. I buy it. Guess what? It turns out that the De Leon was just as good as any other tequila that I've had, right? And guess who I gave the business, right? But I wouldn't have known unless I was intentional, so to speak, about trying to give him an opportunity. You know what I mean? And
that's a bit.
I didn't regret it.
That's a bit. Man, y'all have been incredible. Y'all always going into these Pentecostal moments where y'all be just like overtime and everything, bro. Just so y'all know, every race always defaults to buy from their own. Just so you know, it's the black people that don't, according to the studies. Just saying. Okay. All right. Well, this has been dope, man. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate y'all time. Hopefully y'all can come back next week and we can have similar conversations, because y'all seem to like arguing with each other. But at the same time, I feel like, you know, even doing these disagreements, you know, that we're learning and we're figuring out how we can get better to the point. So King Rio, just to answer your question, the first thing that person should do for their credit to come up is that they need to actually go print it out. Right? And then that's the first thing they need to do is print it out and see what the delinquencies are. And then secondly, they can call those individuals. If they have a high interest rate on it, they can call that company and ask them for a lower interest rate, or ask them can they negotiate a price to pay it off. So that's one of the things that they could do.
Thank you, HD. See, I stick to my area. Ask me something about tax though, Rio. I got you. I can give you a game plan.
Yeah, she did say that's not her expertise.
That's not my expertise.
Any opportunity we had to drop knowledge, give game, we got to take advantage.
That's
okay, got you.
All right. Until next time, we out here. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel. Check out Prototype Dad, Dwayne Jones. He just be bugging out. You know what I'm saying? He's a politician. You know what I'm saying? And King Rio over on King Talks at times. And also, he's a photographer. So check him out on Instagram. Then you already know Miss Tax Season. Shay McNuckles is in the building. I appreciate y'all. Until next time, we out here. Deuces.
Night.
What a phenomenal show. As I said, I didn't know where it was going to go. As usual, I don't know where it's going to go. But I appreciate the input from each individual. From my perspective, I believe that you should buy from whoever you want to, because everybody has a niche in which they're trying to accomplish. For me, you know, I do want to build as they have a Chinatown, I want to build a town similar to Greenwood, because I want Black people to see that we can come together in unison to build something of great value and great wealth, right? And so to those that don't feel the same way, that's okay, right? Just know that you're trying to accomplish something, right? For example, the gospel is shared with, like, there's a cowboy church, right? There's a Pentecostal church. Hopefully they're sharing, you know, wherever they are teaching the gospel in a correct fashion, where people are coming to a saving and understanding knowledge of the gospel, then let it be done, right? Until next time, man, don't forget to share this with people, like it, subscribe to the channel. You know what it is. Until next time, we out here. Deuces.